Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are shifting focus from our usual conversations around President Trump and President Biden and the senility issues that have erupted since the debate and focusing on the Veepstakes, which I find to be much more lighthearted and more interesting at that, and a break from the drama that we've been suffering under with the lesser of two evil candidates that we currently have, in my opinion, in the opinions of many Americans. So, Donald Trump has yet to announce who his VP is going to be. In 2016, he announced that Mike Pence is going to be his pick 2 days before the RNC convention, which in this year's timeline, today would be 2 days before. So he's obviously not going to announce them today. He will, at the RNC on July 15th, maybe even push it back a bit because the first rule of politics, do not interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake. And right now, all the focus, all the attention is on President Biden with his flusters at the NATO summit, obviously the debate, the George Stephanopoulos interview, and the NATO summit did nothing to ease any concerns, if only it's given us more clips and more concerns. So he's obviously not going to announce them yet. If anything, he'll try to push them past the July 15th RNC convention, but nevertheless, he'll have to announce them at some point. And the candidates that many think are in the final three are Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and Florida Senator Marco Rubio. So I think there's been a large push from many to pick Doug Burgum, right? Rupert Murdoch has really been pushing, in particular, Trump to pick Doug Burgum because in many ways, Trump is this bigger than life character, right? He wants to pick someone who's not going to rain on his parade, not going to take away his shine, make sure that all the attention is still on him. And Doug Burgum is very forgettable. Not to be rude, but obviously he doesn't have much going for him, right? He's not a particularly skilled politician. He doesn't have memorable policies. He's just kind of there, which is also very true for Mike Pence. So there's a parallel there, though we don't know if he wants to stray away from what he picked last time, because last time there are also rumors that he wasn't really happy with his pick and that he was even considering replacing him with a Newt Gingrich or Chris Christie like 2 hours before he announced him. So maybe he'll try to shift focus away from this person who's going to be quiet and subservient and just help him and pick someone who's also a bit of a personality like himself. So if he were to do that, then J.D. Vance would probably be his best pick on the personality front. He's a first-term freshman senator. He got elected in 2022. Before that, he's known for being the best-selling author of Hillbilly Elegy. He's an investment banker, venture capitalist, or something of that sort as well. So he's obviously very new to politics. He doesn't have that experience, and something that Trump and his advisors have been saying is that they want to pick someone who will take over the torch and be the president for the next 8 years after Trump. Now, I think that J.D. Vance, he's a good politician, he's skilled, he's obviously very intelligent, but again, he's very new to the game. I don't know if that's necessarily something that would be of concern to Trump, since he went straight to the presidency without holding any other public office. So maybe they do take particular interest to J.D. Vance. Another concern is that, as well as him with Doug Burgum, they're not too well known, right? Obviously, us in the political sphere and who pay attention to these things, political junkies, know who these people are, but many probably don't. J.D. Vance isn't a household name by any chance. His book, Hillbilly Elegy, probably did the best thing for him in making him more well known, because his Senate career hasn't been too pronounced yet. But otherwise, Marco Rubio is going to be the best and most notable name. But I don't think that name recognition even is going to be that important for Trump, since he's one of the most famous people on the planet, the most famous, arguably. And so I don't think that will be too much of a concern for him. Something else to keep in mind is how these candidates have treated Trump in the past, right? When did they flip the switch to be like, oh, pick me, I'm great, I love you, and when have they criticized Trump? So J.D. Vance in particular, he criticized and said pretty bad things about Trump in 2018 or 2019, I don't remember exactly when, but saying pretty bad things and comparing him to Hitler in some cases. And then obviously switched over because in 2022, during his Senate run, Trump did endorse him. So they obviously have reconciled that beef in that time. J.D. Vance has also said great things about Trump, so that beef is no longer existent. Doug Burgum obviously ran for president in this past cycle, was one of the first ones to drop out because he was barely polling in the single digits. And then Senator Marco Rubio in 2016, he ran against Trump. And they had a pretty public feud with him earning the title of Little Marco from Donald Trump, and them having some pretty notable and clip-worthy moments. So I'll just say that they all have had some sort of beef with Trump in the past, Doug Burgum probably the least of which, because even though he ran against Trump, it obviously seemed more to be because he wanted to get his name out there and wanted to get this potential VP spot rather than him wanting to go against Trump and be in opposition, because he obviously knew that he wasn't going to win against candidates like Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis in the race. So that's what that. Out of these three, I think that honestly Marco Rubio would be the best bet. First of all, he's been a senator for a very long time. He's obviously experienced. He's a good politician, and he would easily be able to carry on the torch for the next 8 years. He's Latino. He appeals to that base. The only problem, well, this is a slight technicality, is that he and President Trump are both from Florida, and so he would have to register in, say, Nevada, another state that he spends a lot of time in order for it to be constitutionally okay, because no, like, a VP and a president can't be from the same state. So he would just have to register in a residency in a different state, but that's obviously very easy and can be handled in a split second. But I think that he's the best bet. I think that he could really help him just fully turn Florida more red than it's been, maybe appeal to Latinos in Arizona or Nevada. Obviously, Latinos aren't a monolith, and Florida Latinos are very different from Arizona and Nevada Latinos, but still they have, something in common. Marco Rubio could possibly be a politician that appeals to them more so, because if he's able to win those two states, then that would be very good for him. And he's currently polling in those two states, and this is just a map that I've drawn up. These are the states that we know are going to go one way or another. And so if he's able to win Nevada and Arizona, that puts him in pretty good heading. And then he's also ahead in Georgia. He's obviously going to win North Carolina. And then between these three states, he's ahead in all of them, actually. Pretty terrible news for President Biden. But, he's going to win all three of them. But even if he only wins one, even if he only wins one of these, and then Virginia somehow goes to Biden, still pretty bad. So if he's able to win those two states, great for him. And if not, he'll still probably win, Trump meaning. So J.D. Vance, the only concerns I have about him is that he's still pretty new to the scene, and I don't know if Trump would want to pick someone that new. And also, he does have a bigger personality and seems to be more outspoken than the other two, so maybe he doesn't want those clashing personalities, someone who always wants to be in the spotlight, someone who is going to take the attention away from Trump, or maybe he does, I don't know. And then North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, just obviously very forgettable. I think that he kind of learned his lesson with Mike Pence and wants to stray away from that, so I think that Marco Rubio would personally be my pick if I were him. Obviously, I'm not, but if I were. And then there are two other candidates that I think are possible contenders. So again, obviously, and I don't know if they included them. I don't think they did, but here we have J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Two other candidates that I think could actually fare very well as VP picks with President Trump are Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. So firstly, on Glenn Youngkin, he's been this governor of Virginia for a very long time. And Virginia, if you know anything about politics, it's gone blue to the Democratic presidential candidate since 2008. Barack won it twice, Hillary, Biden, and again this year probably Biden, but it's going to be won in a much smaller margin. And so he, being a Republican governor in a blue state, pretty consistently blue state, hasn't been won since George W. George H.W. Bush, in 2004, he's obviously really appeals to that base. And if Trump is able to win Virginia, which current polling, there's not that much polling on Trump Biden in Virginia, not too recently anyways, but if we were to look at it, still, it's pretty even, dead set, right? And I think that could really help Trump to win Virginia, which has a fair amount of electoral votes, and would just help him cross the finish line even better. And also Glenn Youngkin is very likable. He's a good politician, and he'd easily carry on the torch for the next 8 years after Trump. And the other candidate that I was eyeing would be Tim Scott. So Tim Scott, he's a senator from South Carolina, and obviously him being black appeals more to the black vote. In 2020, President Trump won 8% of the black vote, which just tells you how much in strides Black Americans are voting for Democrats Democrats. They won 92% for Biden in 2020. Now, this time around, it's going to be much different because we don't have the same type of political turmoil against Republicans as we did in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter protests and movement. So this time around, it seems like polling is showing around 21% of Black Americans are going to vote for President Biden. A huge increase, for Trump, a huge increase from 8 to 21%, something that's honestly pretty historical. They have not voted in these types of strides for a Republican candidate since Richard Nixon, which is insane that Trump is polling this way with all his concerns and allegations about him being racist and this and that. That's insane to me. So obviously he would appeal more, even push it over the edge. Some concerns about him. He's not that memorable of a speaker. He's not that good of a speaker. His speeches are fine. They're not great. They don't get an audience riled up. No one's too excited about Tim Scott ever. Obviously South Carolina is going to go to a Republican either way, to Trump either way, but still, just to broaden up the black vote and maybe get a bit of the votes in Georgia, because Georgia is about 30% African American and they really control a lot of the voting base there. So that would really help there. But otherwise, I think that Trump, honestly, whoever he picks, he's going to be in a safe spot. My personal recommendation, obviously, if he's going to pick from these three that we've heard from, it would be Marco Rubio. I think that he's the best candidate. He would be the best president afterwards, and he would be the perfect mix of not shying away from the spotlight too much, but not taking over it too much either. And also, all three of these, I think, would fare pretty well in a debate against Kamala Harris. The one that I'm most worried about would be Doug Burgum versus J.D. Vance. Marco Rubio are quite sharp, and they would do very well against a debate with her. A VP debate, Doug Burgum less so, and then Tim Scott, again, some concerns because he's not that sharp, he's not that, at it, memorable, and Glenn Youngkin would also fare very well in a debate against Kamala Harris. But otherwise, I think that, honestly, Glenn Youngkin would be a very good pick, and Marco Rubio, both very good picks on the president's front, on Trump's front. But either way, he's going to win probably. All polling basically at this point shows that Trump is going to win, with Rasmussen and the New York Times, CNN, Wall Street Journal, CNN all showing Trump up 6, which is insane. And then only 3 outlets showing either Biden winning or Biden tying. The rest all showing Trump winning by pretty good margins, honestly. Like 2 points, 4 points, 6 points. These are great for a non-incumbent. These are great, honestly, for Trump. He should be very excited right now. And so he's obviously going to win at this point in time if things carry on the way that they have been. If you go back to July 27th or June 27th, huge decrease in Biden support and huge uptick in Trump support, and since then it's just been going up and down, and I don't know if they're going to switch Biden out. Obviously Biden wants to stay in the race, and so we don't even know if Kamala Harris would be the person debating against whoever it is that Trump picks, but whoever it may be is probably not going to have too much of a burden on them as would Kamala Harris or another VP pick. And also one more thing to notice, I did talk about like Glenn Youngkin and Tim Scott just because I think that Trump isn't afraid of going out of left field, and even though all the news has been on these 3 men to pick someone else. So again, personally, I would pick Marco Rubio, but I think that he might go with Doug Burgum just because he's not as, prominent and wouldn't steal the spotlight. So yeah. Thank you for watching, and please let me know in the comments below who you think is going to get this VP pick, and when you also think that Trump's going to announce it. Is he going to announce it on July 15th at the convention, or push it later on to let the focus still remain on Biden? So thank you again, and see you next time.